Good evening. It is Monday night and it is time for the state of Scottish football. We will be looking back at the weekend cinch action, and there's certainly a lot to discuss from another action-packed weekend. And joining me this Monday evening is Dave. Dave, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Big shift yesterday, but fine. Had a wee sleep this afternoon, all ready for some state of Scottish football action with your fine self.
Yep, and well, Dave, you did have a busy day yesterday. You found yourself at Tannadice reporting on Celtic's 3-0 victory at Dundee United. So I think that's where we should start, as Celtic kept the pace with Rangers, who put in a 3-0 performance of their own at Ibrox, which we'll come on to later in the show. But Dave, as you kind of said before we went live tonight, it was probably Celtic's best performance of the season so far.
Yeah, and that was without Ross and without Jota, which just tells you everything you need to know about where Celtic are at just now. I mean, there was a lot of quality in that team, and there's been a lot of pundits suggesting that Conor McGregor is the best midfielder in Scottish football right now. I wouldn't go as far as that, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, but I could definitely see how he makes the Celtic team click. Deep line midfielder, gets the ball about, gets the ball into good areas, and he definitely makes that Celtic team click. David Turnbull was either man in the match or indeed one of their best players yesterday. His chip over Segrist was very good, and he had a very good performance yesterday. Kyogo's went off the ball a little bit, but they didn't have to rely on him because Celtic were comfortable anyway. But no, some very good performances, a very good team performance, and ultimately a final victory for Celtic. And in contrast to that, Dundee United, I thought, were very poor, and they're in a very bad predicament right now. Really, 1-7, which is hugely worrying for Tam Courts' side.
Yeah, Bobby Madden making sure that, well, certainly helped, giving them a huge slice of luck in that one win from 7, because obviously it came in that highly controversial game against Aberdeen. But I don't know if I agree that Kyogo's gone off the boil, given the fact that, I think watching the highlights back, it's staggering how he didn't score or at least grab an assist in that game. I think Benjamin Segrist, put in a good shift to keep the score down to just 3. But on the point you made about Callum McGregor, I know it's something that Amy Canavan, she's a big fan of Callum McGregor. Kind of a lot of his work goes unnoticed, especially in the Scotland squad. But probably a player that has stepped up in terms of leadership for this Celtic squad this season. Do you think that's fair?
Absolutely. And by the way, I love you, Strange Love the Doctor, because you came in with Tom Rogic, and I completely forgot about the man yesterday. I completely forgot about his wizardry dancing and bang. It was the Wizard of Oz yesterday. But on your original point about Callum McGregor, and yeah, he is a leader, and he's shown that for both club and country. I mean, from a Scotland persuasion, to start things off here, when Scotland played, who was it? The Faroe Islands. I forgot who it was there. No, McGregor. Definitely told in that performance, because Scotland went and won the game 1-0, but then in terms of the complexion of that performance, no McGregor kind of told in terms of our midfield play and that even question. And a lot of, from a Scotland point of view here, a lot of notice does go to McGinn and Gilmore, and justifiably so, I may add. But don't notice the hard work that McGregor puts in. And it's the same for Celtic. I mean, Celtic playing in a similar mould to what Scotland do. They have Turnbull and other midfield players that can go and do the more forward-thinking work, whilst McGregor can be a lot more laid back. And I'll be honest with saying, if Celtic fans want to disagree with me here, then fine. But I do honestly feel that McGregor is a better midfielder without Scott Brown in a way, because Scott Brown was a lot more laid back. But that's Carl McGregor's role this season, and it's a role he's kind of doing very, very well in. And he's helping Ange Postecoglou's side getting some very big wins this season, and yesterday was another big one. But also alongside that, Kyogo, I'm sure maybe said different terminology. I said off the boil in terms of, what I said was off the boil in terms of he's not scored goals of late, but he's still a talisman, and no question that.
Yeah, and I suppose if you want to look at it from a Scottish point of view, we should probably pick out David Turnbull's performance yesterday. A player that finds himself maybe on the fringes of the Scotland squad, it's fair to say, and maybe hasn't been called up as regularly as certain Celtic fans may think he deserves, or other Scottish football fans think he deserves. But yesterday, probably showing Steve Clarke and the rest of Scottish football the quality that many of us remember him having at Motherwell in particular, because he hasn't shown that sort of level of performance for Celtic on a consistent enough basis.
No, you're right, and that's the disappointing thing from David Turnbull's perspective, and that's probably the reason why he hasn't had more Scotland Cups, if I'm going to be honest with you. But I mean, I've alluded to the chip over Seagrass. I thought it was a moment of magic, not just from Turnbull himself, I may add, but also from Rogic, because Rogic had that lovely ball into Turnbull, and also Turnbull's overall midfield play in terms of creating opportunities can't go unnoticed, and he was brilliant yesterday. And the disappointment, and I'll touch David Turnbull on this list here. The disappointment from Celtic is they didn't win by more than 3 because they were that good yesterday. If you're going to be a purist here, they could have won by 6 or 7 yesterday. And I know it seems a little bit harsh on Dundee United when I say that, but honestly, they had plenty of chances, and Dundee United had to rely on Benji Seagrass to keep that scoreline down yesterday.
Yeah, and I suppose Tom Rogic, a man that's haunted me many a time, and still does, gives me nightmares. Finally gave somebody else nightmares and just showed the quality that he has. A player that's really come alive under Ange Postecoglou.
I was listening to Celtic State of Mind earlier, Glenn, and guys Tony Haggart and Amy Canavan were speaking about the fact that Tom Rogic has been his best season for Celtic, no question about it. And also, when you look at it, it's also the season where it's kind of defined him in a way, because in previous seasons under various managers such as Rodgers and Lennon and we'll go for that. He's kind of not fell by the wayside, but he has been under pressure in terms of whether he's going to be getting a new contract and staying on at the club. Obviously, it's injury worries as well, but having an Australian pedigree in terms of Ange Postecoglou has helped Rogic big time. You're seeing big performances from Rogic every week, and like I said, this was a big season for him, and he's delivering very well. And yesterday, he was getting described as goal of the season. Now there's plenty of big goals that'll get scored and plenty of long range strikes that'll get scored, but yesterday was a good bit of solo skill from Rogic. The fact that he goes past 4 United defenders and then squeezes the ball beyond Seagrass into the far corner is just a joy to watch. But also, I touched upon it earlier on with that assist for Turnbull. That was a that was a quality piece of skill just to get the ball over the United defence and get the ball.
It was Callum McGregor that got the assist for the Turnbull goal.
Was it McGregor? Okay. Sorry. My point is that United have been organised defensively, right? They were the 5th meanest defence in Britain until 2-3 weeks ago. Which just tells you everything you need to know about where they're at. We're Celtic, that's sorry, but where United are at as well. And no, that's a fantastic performance from Celtic. And as Ange Postecoglou said to me after the game yesterday, solid performance. And guys, I do have to apologise because one, I've had a busy day today, and 2, I spoke for 7.5 minutes, so there was no way I was editing a 30-second clip for you guys tonight from 7.5 minutes. But I must say that Ange Postecoglou spoke very well. But I may add on the record here that he did get asked some questions about Thursday, so some of the stuff for tonight's show would be a little bit irrelevant.
I know, it was a solid performance from Celtic, and as you said, from a Dundee United point of view, for a team that had such a solid defence, they'll have been really disappointed in the way that Celtic managed to cut through them at ease throughout the 90 minutes, and it must be a bit of a worry for Tam Courts going forward. Do you not think?
Yeah, the feeling around the fan base before the game, obviously. Where we were sat in the press box, you weren't allowed Donny fans, obviously, because of Storm Arwen affected, obviously, the Jerry Kerr stand. But having listened to guys such as Rory Costello from the Dodd Fox podcast, just to get his name out there, having listened to him, he was kind of the opinion of no Jota, no Ralston can mean a lot of joy in the wing-back areas for United, and also Carl Butcher potentially coming in. We'll get up to Carl Butcher tackle very, very soon, I may add, because I know Regan Stevenson in particular is very keen to obviously get involved in this, going by the comment section there. But no, on the overall synopsis of play, and it was the other way around. It was no Jota, no Ralston, but still, where Celtic hurt Dundee United was either in the forward areas or on both flanks. And if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I thought Edwards and Mulgrew were poor yesterday, just because and United put Mulgrew out to speak to us after the game. But in terms of United defensively, this is why I'm saying I felt Celtic could have won by a lot more than they did because McGrew and Edwards were getting cut up in a lot of times. I was making a point to an analyst I know. He's called Gary Mulroney. He runs the Maroon Report or Maroon Analytics, one of the two. And I was making a point to him by saying, see, when Celtic have the ball in the opposition area, such as United defensive area, Nicky Clark and Aperi wouldn't be in the opposition area. They would be compact in the other area of the park and not exactly helping their teammates, despite United having two banks of four alongside Aperi and Clark. So it shows to me that there was a lot of exploits in the United defence and the United team as a whole. Also, players weren't willing to give 100%, and that's got to be a worry for Tam Courts' side. And as I alluded to earlier in the show, 1 win in 7, it's got to be worrying. And obviously, at the weekend for United, it's a massive game for Tam Courts' side.
Yeah, a massive game for Tam Courts' side, but also what must be a concern for him is some of the indiscipline shown by certain players, and well, really only one player in particular being Callum Butcher, known for his physical approach to the game. That was a leg-breaking tackle on David Turnbull, no two ways about it, and how on earth he managed to escape a red card is beyond me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Regan, we're getting you involved here, so I hope you're well this Monday evening. Hope you enjoyed your hospitality at the Glasgow City Celtic women's game yesterday. Good one for Celtic, but back on the original point about the challenge. It looks worse in telly than it does in the press area, right? Should have been a red card, no getting away from it. Don Robertson made a horrible decision, and I'll be honest by saying, in terms of guys in the media, they won't exactly hype up the challenge because the game was won. But if that was a 1-0 game, or if that was a 2-1 Celtic game, or if that was a game where it was separated by that challenge, I'm pretty sure, such as done yet the result, just to give you a prime example there, I'm pretty sure everybody would be speaking about that Butcher challenge a lot more than they are. And
I don't think it should matter though with the state of the game. If it's 3-0, 0-0, it's a red card. Exactly, it's a red card. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, it's still a horrible challenge. And had that been the other way around, and a Celtic player got sent off, I'm sorry for being brutal here, but if I was a Celtic player getting sent off for that similar challenge, there'd be Celtic fans probably agreeing with the sending off, or certain sections of Celtic fans agreeing with the sending off, but there would also be others by saying what would happen if that was the other way around. So, but yeah, he should have went. And the horrible thing about Callum Butcher, and I hate to be brutal, I've been brutal on this show, I don't know why, but that's Callum Butcher's 5th booking of the season. How many games has he played? 7.
Yeah, and in that 7 games, he's actually only played 433 minutes of football this season in that 7 games in the Premiership. So 5 bookings and a red card. Obviously, the red card coming in that game against Aberdeen, and that was him just coming back on the pitch for 40 minutes yesterday after serving a 2-match ban for the punch he put on Christian Ramirez, and very lucky not to find himself sitting on the sidelines again with another suspension. I think Don Robertson's booking has saved him, from any further punishment. The whole trial by sports, or trial by me and Dave on State of Scottish Football.
Well, first and foremost, I hope nobody at Dundee United listens to this, but I think that's why Ryan Edwards got the captaincy.
Yeah,
right? I won't admit it to Tam Courts when I speak to him, and I won't admit it to other people, but that's why I think Ryan Edwards got the captain's armband.
Well, I think that's a very fair point. But moving on from Tannadice, there was another game that took place yesterday over at Almond Vale. It was Livingston 0, Hearts 1. In a kind of game of 2 halves, Dave, Livingston found themselves up against probably one of the most informed goalkeepers in Scotland just now in Craig Gordon. It was a stellar display from the Scotland number 1. Yeah,
there's a lot of Hearts fans I'm noticing on social media blessing Craig Gordon right now because he has given Hearts some big points already this season. Yesterday was another hard-earned 3 points for Robbie Nielsen's side, and Livingston had some chances, but the save that I enjoyed the most was the one where the Livingston player, I don't know what the name
Jason Holt it was.
Jason Holt, okay, thanks for that, because I haven't done my homework today, so thanks very much for that. So Jason Holt has the shot, and then Craig Gordon tips it onto the post. That's the favourite save for me.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goalkeeper save as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, for Livingston, watch them in midweek at Pittodrie, and for all that they huffed and they puffed, they really offered very little going forward. So they must take encouragement from the fact that they did offer a lot more in front of goal yesterday, but ultimately it's still 0 points again, and they're finding themselves languishing in a bit of trouble, probably saved by the fact that the game at Perth found itself waterlogged on Saturday, or they could, potentially have been, in the relegation zone.
You've made the point, and Greg Playfair has made the point. Livingston don't have enough goal scorers in the team. We talk about players such as Bruce Anderson and other players such as that who have the capabilities to score goals, but they don't have the credentials just yet, I may add, to go and score 20 goals a season for Livingston. I mean, they've been good acquisitions in terms of the overall ball play for the respective teams. But what Livingston's Achilles heel is right now is the fact that they don't go and score enough goals, but also defensively, it's very poor at the back defensively for Livingston as well. Livingston have had a nucleus over the past few years of having a good nucleus in both the defence and midfield areas in particular that's allowed them to go and get big results like they have. But this season's been nothing short of disappointing. And also when you look at it, right, St Johnstone, when I look at the overall league table at the moment, St Johnstone are going through a predicament at the moment. I think St Johnstone will respond. Dundee are going not bad. Saturday was a blip because it was raining. No getting away from that. Ross County are starting to pick up. So you do fear to an extent for Davy Martindale's side, but for Hearts, a very big 3 points. But I have noticed comments on social media that certain Hearts fans weren't happy with the level of performance, and that's the stumbling block for Robbie Neilson right now. He is getting wins and he's getting good results, but the Achilles heel and the stumbling block for Neilson is he's not exactly playing fantastic stylish football. I don't know who made the point, but somebody made the point. I think it was Regan actually. They made the point that Robbie Neilson plays a different kind of style of football.
Yeah, it's funny. Hearts are probably the hardest fans to please in Scottish football. They're never happy unless they're probably beating Hibs 5-1 in a Scottish Cup final. But at the end of the day, football's a results-based business, and they've ground out an important 3 points. The title's about Celtic keeping the pace with Rangers, but you could argue that Hearts are keeping on Celtic's coattails in that race for second place, if you want. But the point I made to Regan last week on the show was about how Hearts have been quite dominant at home, and they needed to start getting 3 points away from home. So regardless of the performance, that 3 points yesterday is massive for Robbie Neilson and his men, because it's just the sign that they can grind out a win when most needed away from home.
Yeah, and I think it's a sign of a good team at Hearts just now, because, Hearts are third right now, and they're third by good measure, may I add, because, we were looking at Hearts at the start of the season, sorry, there's a bit of noise outside, I beg your pardon there, but we were looking at Hearts at the start of the season by thinking they wouldn't challenge for European football, but what they would do is be solid in the Premiership. But Hearts have probably externally exceeded all expectations so far this season.
Yeah.
They also beat Celtic. They've got some big results elsewhere. Maybe they've not obviously beaten Aberdeen so far this season, and they drew with Hibs, but the record against the lower teams in the league has been very impressive, and it's probably helped in terms of Hearts getting up the league and doing as well as they have, because if you want to be challenged for European football, you need to be beating the teams around the bottom area of the table, and that's what they're doing just now.
Yeah, and I suppose the return of Liam Boyce from a Hearts point of view, obviously he went on to grab the winner yesterday, is probably welcomed when you're coming into this busy set of fixtures, especially when this is probably something they've missed in recent weeks, the Dundee United game aside, when obviously they scored 5, but to have that out-and-out goal scorer, because Nangeli hasn't really hit the heights, obviously missed a bit of an open goal yesterday as well, a good chance to score again. So just having that quality in Liam Boyce is going to be key for Hearts, I think, as the season develops. Yeah,
absolutely. And I've made the point on the show with Greg last Thursday night that if you've got an out-and-out striker that will go and score goals, it'll make them world of difference to your team, because the teams in the bottom 6 currently, I would say, excluding Dundee United at this precise moment in time, all have a goal scorer. I mean, Celtic have Kyogo, Rangers have Roof currently. Used to be Morelos, but currently Roof. Hibs have Boyle, Boyle, Motherwell of Tony Watt, and Hearts of Liam Boyce. So it goes to show you that if you have goal scorers, you're going to be the best of the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, one team that's certainly got goal scorers and is scoring goals for fun just now are Rangers, and they continued their positive start to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's reign as Rangers manager with a fairly convincing and straightforward 3-0 win over James McPake's Dundee side. Dave, no real surprises with the result, Ibrox?
Yeah, just before I continue, obviously we're on right now, so we haven't paid attention to STVs, but apparently the foul in Turnbull has been investigated further, so we'll obviously have developments in that further down the week if anything does come across to that. But on the Rangers game, very good performance and very good 3 points from a Rangers perspective. A routine win in the end. I mean, it was important for Rangers not to go and underestimate Dundee, because I mean Dundee had a very good week prior to Saturday with good wins over Motherwell and St Johnstone. The Motherwell, was the only defeat Motherwell have had in 5 or 6. So that's a very good start within itself, and it goes to show you that Dundee are starting to mould themselves properly into a Premiership structure. So this was a big game for Rangers, and they passed flying colours and got the job done, and some good goals in there. Obviously, the first goal was a little bit unfortunate from a Dundee point of view because it was a Fontaine on goal, and the second goal was Sweeney, and then the third goal was the kissing on the cake where was it Roof or Morelos? Morelos was a very good finish, and Langston's was in the queue the other day saying that the disappointment defeat, obviously, but overall, they couldn't. The own goals that Dundee conceded are probably going to happen over the course of the season. It was just a disappointing one from a Dundee perspective that it all happened at Ibrox on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll come into the Dundee side of things in particular, because as much as the scoreline, makes it sound convincing and routine, I do think that the manner of the goals in particular were very unkind to Dundee. But we'll take a look at the Rangers' perspective first. And Joe Aribo, a man that has had a good season so far, is fairly finding his feet and putting himself into the spotlight as we come up to January, maybe outshining a certain Ryan Kent just now.
Yeah, probably. I may add, I think Kent's a different player under Van Bronckhorst and Mackay, probably because Van Bronckhorst and Mackay got a fine tune out of him in this area rather than the foot area of the body, because obviously we all know that Roy Mackay doesn't like any fancy stuff, so that goes to show you. Also, the other thing about this is Joe Aribo has started the season very well under Gerrard, went to Van Bronckhorst and continued his fine form. He's put some good performances for Rangers of late. It was another fine one at the weekend with a good 3-0 win for Rangers. So huge positives for Rangers all round.
Yeah, and I suppose another positive for them will be Alfredo Morelos getting himself on the score sheet against Dundee. Kemar Roof scoring the winner in midweek and Morelos grabbing a goal on Saturday. So, getting both strikers scoring and getting some confidence going into the Lyon game on Thursday. And as I said, it's a couple of tough fixtures coming up. I think they go to Tynecastle this weekend coming, and they've also got a trip to Pataudry in a few weeks as well. So a real testing time for Rangers away from home coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big talking point for the state of Scottish football point of view is the fact that Rangers won't get any fans till Lyon on Thursday night now. So yeah. I mean, it is a big few weeks coming up for Rangers, because they've got Lyon on Thursday, they've got Hearts away on Sunday, as you alluded to there, and Aberdeen away on the 29th, which obviously during the festive period is hard enough within itself because you've got a lot of games, obviously. So there's opportunity for Rangers. It's either potential clean swiping and get a lot of points in the board, or it's potential banana skin permutation to it. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting time if you're a Rangers fan. Obviously, there won't be a lot on this show, but a lot of exciting games, and they'll be looking at a bit like Celtic. They'll look at keep some momentum going per an Old Firm game on the 2nd of January. Because I made the point to somebody today, I think the Old Firm game on the 2nd of January is seasoned could potentially be season defining, because Celtic will need a win more than Rangers at this precise moment in time. Also, it's the first Old Firm of the season for Van Bronckhorst, but Postecoglou will be looking to get a monkey off the back. So there's an interesting next couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's these next few games coming up for both Celtic and Rangers are really kind of interesting in how it tees up for that Glasgow derby on the 2nd. There's a lot of tough games coming up for both sides. Obviously, both have got midweek fixtures after their weekend game as well. So very interesting to see how that develops. And obviously, I think it was posed in the comments earlier about why is the title Celtic keeping pace, given that they were only 4 points behind. Well, the fact is Celtic, for the second weekend in a row, have had to respond to what Rangers have done in the lunchtime kickoff or kicking off the day before. So that's why, there's been that bit of added pressure, I think it's maybe fair to say, on Celtic, given the fact the Rangers have kept getting that results. And again, it's going to be the same this weekend, because Rangers, yes, they're going to Hearts, a tricky venue. Celtic have already found out this season. The Hearts have drawn with both Aberdeen and Hibs, as you touched on there, Dave. But again, Rangers play first this weekend. So again, it's another chance for them to, put some more distance between Celtic before Celtic kicks off. So I do think that also, does have a psychological effect.
Yeah, 100%. But also, Regan Stevenson, thank you very much, because you've raised a very good point here. Saying the cup final for me will tell us a lot about Celtic. I think it will. I mean, it's a big few weeks for both Celtic and Rangers. And I mean, from a psychological point of view here, the December-January window before the winter break normally defines a team's season. Now, it won't exactly determine where the league will go, but it will determine how things are going to shape up for the second half of the season. And that's a massive cup final for Ange Postecoglou. It's not an opportunity, to get the first silverware for Postecoglou as Celtic manager, and he's up against the Hibs side that are doing well in the cups. Well, doing well in the League Cup, Premier Sports Cups at the moment, but in terms of league duty, not doing very well. I read a stat today, we'll obviously get on to Hibs very shortly. I read a stat today that they haven't won a league game since St Johnstone back in August.
Yeah. Might be right on that. But we obviously got a bit sidetracked about the games coming up, and I think you're totally right. December and January are always kind of interesting points of the season. We were saying in the group chat, we were speaking about the Highland League and how interesting that's going to be getting over the next few weeks in terms of the pyramid race for playoffs there. But back to the game at Ibrox, Dave, how much do you think this defeat will affect Dundee, given probably the nature of the goals they conceded? Do you think they'll be disappointed? Obviously buoyed by the wins against Motherwell and St Johnstone, as you alluded to earlier. Do you think they'll be disappointed they kind of never really laid any sort of glove on Rangers on Saturday?
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting dynamics to take out of this, because there's also the Griffiths incident, the challenge on Aribo, if I'm not mistaken, where he was subject to obviously a bit of that from the Rangers fans, understandably so, I may add. But also in the forward areas, they did struggle to lift a lid on Rangers in particular. But I mean, Pete Whitfield's trying a trusted system that's worked for him in the last two games, playing Danny Mullen up front, where a 5 across the middle, a 4-2-3-1. It worked against Motherwell and St Johnstone, so why change it if it's not broken? Broken's begging pardon, I never mixed up the words there. But I mean, Mullen's been fine in form, but also that is the disappointment for Dundee, the fact that they didn't trouble Rangers too often. There was a chance in the dying stages of the game where Griffiths had a shot that carried off the post, or McGregor kind of deflected. That was the only big chance Dundee had, really. But apart from that, it was a frustrating defeat for James McPakin, back to the drawing board before Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big game at County, I may add.
Yeah, very big game, given obviously the Ross County game, as we alluded to. So only 5 games we're reviewing today, given the Ross County St Johnstone game was called off at lunchtime on Saturday due to a waterlogged pitch. It'll be interesting to see when they reschedule that game for. two teams that I'm sure would probably actually like the game to go ahead. County on a solid run of form, and St Johnstone desperately looking for a bit of form. So maybe both sides disappointed in that. But one game that did manage to stay on despite what was some pretty extreme weather at times during that first 45 was at Tawdry, where Aberdeen recorded back-to-back wins with a 4-1 win over St Mirren, which was a highly entertaining game, it has to be said, especially given the wind and the rain. And it's the first time in 14 months, Dave, that Aberdeen have scored more than 2 goals in a game. Were you surprised to see that result coming through?
Not really, if I'm going to be honest with you, because St Mirren have been organised defensively, but their Achilles heel in recent times have been their goal scoring instincts, because they haven't scored. I'll need to check my stats back again, but they haven't scored a lot of goals this season, and they have been a frustrating team to watch in terms of an attacking sense. But for Aberdeen, another good 3 points. Stephen Glass needed. I would say that Stephen Glass needed the win on Saturday more than he needed the win on Wednesday, and I'll tell you why. Because Livingston was a good 3 points, no getting away, right? And it was a good monkey off the back for Glass after the disappointments from Dundee United and Celtic, but also that St Mirren win, just to back up what happened against Livingston, was a big thing for Glass, because if he dropped points on Saturday, he'd have had the Red Army, or sections of the Red Army under pressure. He'd have been under pressure for sections of the Red Army again. So that was a more important win Saturday compared to the one on Wednesday night. And he goes to the St Johnstone game on Saturday with another big game in his stride. And I talked about this being a big 3-game window for Stephen Glass. His past 2 assignments. The third one is a big opportunity to get a third big assignment out of the way, and hopefully 9 points out of 9. And that's the least you can expect. There was a lot of clamour on social media about, if Stephen Glass gets 5 points, he should be sacked, or if Stephen Glass gets 3 points out of 9, he should be sacked.
Stop reading my Twitter timeline.
Oh, it was.
No, I'm joking.
Okay, but yeah, you got me there, big man. But yeah, just with regards to getting a good run also, because from an Aberdeen point of view, whenever they've built up a bit of momentum, it's not happened within a 2, 3, 4 week period. It's happened within a 7-day window, which has been hugely frustrating. Because the European results all happened within that 7-day period. When they beat Hearts and Hibs is probably an exception, but again, that's a 7-day window. Livingston St Mirren was a 3-4 day window, and there was a draw at Ibrox to match alongside that as well. But the point I'm getting at here is, get some momentum, and Aberdeen fans will be fine. Stephen Glass won't have the pressures and the burdens of the Red Army.
Yeah, and I think it's an excellent point, Dave, and it's one that I'm going to be kind of making on Red Tinted Glasses when we're recording tomorrow, is the fact that we went and backed up the midweek result by getting 3 points, and I'm not going to get carried away. 2 wins is seen as back into the top 6, albeit Hibs do have a couple of games in hand on Aberdeen. Obviously, Hibs currently sitting in 7th, but we've only won 1 game away from home this season domestically, and that was thanks to Max Strycek chucking the ball in the back of the net. So for me, it's really a case of Aberdeen now continuing, as you're absolutely right, Dave, is backing these results up. There's no point in doing your good work in these 2-3 game windows over the space of a week. You've got a week between the games now, and a trip to McDermott Park to look forward to at the weekend. Go and back that up. Go and get your second win away from home this season domestically, and then we've got 11 days to wait until the what's actually shaping up to be a big game against Hibs. And then, as Ian McIntosh says in the comments, hopefully continue some good form for that home game against Rangers, and that would be timed very nicely. And I think it's not just the team maybe hitting form, but certain players as well. Marley Watkins grabbing a couple of goals, Christian Ramirez as well. But David Bates is the one I'm particularly keen to discuss, David, because he is a player that's been widely criticised by Aberdeen fans when he first came in. maybe couldn't get himself up to the pace of Scottish football, wasn't totally match fit, but on Saturday he had 2 goal-saving tackles, 1 headed off the line as well. Just to back up the performance he put in against Livingston, he's come really solid. Yes, he probably just disappointed he never kept the clean sheet.
Yeah, I mean, he's improved week upon week, and that's been a good thing. And if I'm getting the player wrong, then correct me here. But I'm pretty sure Glass came out publicly and says internally had discussions with David Bates about performances and how things were progressing for Bates, and Bates has kind of took it in his stride, took the feedback in his stride, and came in and delivered improved performances. And there is a player, David Bates, I made. About developing him and making sure he's got the correct mould, and that's what Aberdeen have at this precise minute in time. And he was lucky not to score at the weekend, as you touched upon there, but also with the exception of that St. goal, he did everything right defensively on Saturday, and that's all you can ask from David Bates, beg your pardon. And give a massive player over this festive period for Aberdeen, because I mean we've got a lot of big Aberdeen. Sorry, I'm saying we here. Aberdeen've got a lot of big games such as
we do. I'll happily say it.
Yeah, Aberdeen got a lot of big games over Christmas, such as New Year, such as Dundee at home, Rangers away, and then
Rangers at home.
Rangers at home, yeah. And then who have we got 2nd of January?
Ross County away.
Ross County away. I'm saying we again, by the way. But anyway,
but the David Bates, it wasn't. Sorry, I maybe got the way I said it was confusing. It was St Mirren he denied on the goal line. It wasn't him being denied a goal at the weekend. Okay. Just another solid performance. And looking at it from obviously an Aberdeen point of view, just before we move on to St Mirren, was the fact that Marley Watkins before the Livingston game had come out and said, it's time that the players start, doing their talking on the pitch. We've got 5 winnable games, and I was trying to think that 5 games takes us up to the end of the year. So the players have maybe got that confidence that they can go on that bit of run. Just kind of on the point you made, it is important that Aberdeen continue to back these results up and don't go back into a slump of a 2-3 game losing run.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, when Aberdeen go on at a slump of 2-3 games like they did recently, sections of the Red Army and sections externally were thinking Stephen Glass had a big week coming up, and it was a big week. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a week in which Aberdeen fans, or did everybody for that matter, associated with Aberdeen Football Club, had to go and panic about it. Also, the predicament for Aberdeen started after the Raith Rovers result in the Premier Sports Cup, which nobody involved with Aberdeen Football Club will want me reminded. But obviously, the bounce back after that predicament with results against Hearts and Hibs, and you've got to remember, Hearts were okay. Well, Hearts were doing very well at the time.
They were unbeaten at the time.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's even better. And then Hibs were going very well, and they were starting to go on the barren run that they're on just now at that period in time. Yeah. But they were still a dangerous side. So that 2 victories can't be underestimated if you're an Aberdeen fan. And the thing is that I touched upon the 3-game window, and that was massively important for Glass. But also, he's got to back that up now. And Johnston, Hibs, Dundee are all winnable games. Rangers, I mean the point to somebody, if Stephen Glass can't get players prepared for Aberdeen Rangers, especially with Scott Brown included just now as well, and also the rivalry that is encapsulated with Aberdeen Rangers, then you don't deserve to be wearing an Aberdeen Football Club jersey as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think as well, the thing is about, being consistent just now, just looking at the table, Dundee United's sitting there in 4th on 25 points, down to, let's say, Dundee in 9th. That's 9 points separate 4th to 9th. So a poor run of form sees you slip away, but a good run of form keeps you in contention. And that's why, we've got a saying is that the race for best, the rest livens up, because you look even at Hibs sitting there in 7th with 2 games in hand on Dundee United. There's lots of teams vying for that 3rd and 4th place spot, and especially with the guarantees of European football that are coming this season, I'm sure as 3rd place guarantees you group stage football in Europe. There's a big incentive for these teams chasing that 3rd and 4th place this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dundee United have been a refreshing aspect to the Premiership this season. Yeah, they've only got 1 win in 7, and that has got to be disappointing for everybody connected to that club. But also, there's a great start to the season, and I made the point, despite the disappointment for Tam Cox, he's had some big results.
Yeah.
He beat Aberdeen, he beat Hibs at Easter Road, beat Rangers, he drew away at Celtic Park. That can't be undermined or underestimated. But also, Hearts have started the season very well. I made the point about Hearts that I didn't think they were going to be in contention for European football. I thought they were going to be a solid Premiership side and nothing else. Aberdeen have been reasonable. They've not been excellent. They've been reasonable.
Yeah.
Starting to click a bit now.
Yeah.
Andy Considine, I may add, has been back in training. Huge positive. Pardon me, so a lot of positives right now at Aberdeen. Motherwell have been going along really well. They went in a wee blip in form, but they've been doing very well so far this season.
Yeah.
Probably one of the lowest budgets you'll see in the league. So there's a lot of competition there.
Yeah, and I suppose one, to go on the flip side from this game is to look at St Mirren. You mentioned their lack of goals. Saturday was only their second league goal in 6 games. So a real barren spell in front of goals, and they're not going to be helped by the fact that Eamon Brophy limped off injured in the first half, having to be replaced by Curtis May. Saints really struggling to be consistent in front of goals this season, and that's got to be a huge worry for Jim Goodwin now. No win in 5 for the Buddies.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a good thing being defensively organised. That's why St Johnstone have been really good, just to give a comparison there. Also, in terms of your forward thinking areas, you're going to win points and going to get into good positions in the league table if you're scoring goals. And that's been a disappointment for St Mirren. And that's the point I'm making about top scorers and goal scorers at separate clubs. Wayne Boyce, the prime example, Hearts there. Like, see your Dundee Uniteds, your St Mirrens, and other teams around about that bottom area of the table. They're struggling for a few reasons, but predominantly because they don't have a goal scorer to go and bang the goals. Jamie McGrath has went off the boil since I can finally use that word. So I apologise for disrespecting Kyogo there. Jamie McGrath in particular has went off the boil since his injury, and that's a frustration. And I'm pretty sure Jim Goodwin's brain will be going 100 miles per hour right now to try and solve this problem.
Yeah, and I think, Jim Goodwin's probably got a big problem on his hands, where, weeks away from the January transfer window, is Jim McGrath's mind elsewhere just now? St Mirren were coming into this game on the back of some pretty good away form, but it's fair to say Aberdeen blew them away in the opening 10 minutes. But from a St Mirren point of view, for being at the game, I feel a bit sorry for St Mirren because they threw everything at Aberdeen that first half. They got themselves excellently back into the game at 2-1, but just forgot to defend for about 90 seconds after scoring and found themselves, very quickly 3-1 down. But on another day, St Mirren could have got another couple of goals. And similarly, midweek when they drew with Ross County, they were very unlucky that they didn't find the back of the net that day. And I think, they can't just keep having that bad luck story. Something fundamentally has to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, St Mirren have been good in the past few years under Goodwin. Last season in particular, reached the semi-finals in the Scottish Cup. Was unlucky to not finish in the top 6. I do feel there's a lot more to come from this St Mirren side. Nobody can say anything different about that. I mean, we'll need to go back a few months ago and apologise for this, Glenn, but we've got to go back a few months ago. We said St Mirren beat Aberdeen 3-2, and it was a really good performance from the Paisley side. And also, Jim Goodwin's St Mirren have been giving likes of Rangers a good game in recent times. Rangers obviously coming away with a 2-1 victory on that day in question, but St Mirren did start the game very, very well on that day in question. So there's a lot of potential in this St Mirren side, but they don't show it enough as far as I'm concerned. Conor Ronan is a big player, but a bit like McGrath, he has went under the boil, the boil, a little bit.
I don't actually think Ronan played at the weekend. If he did, he was that off the boil. I don't remember him. But one player I was impressed with was the Australian midfielder Matt Miller. But he got forward in spades and created good chances. And it was kind of his own personal battle with Joe Lewis in the first half that seemed to go on. But as you rightly say, Dave, these players aren't performing on a consistent enough basis for Jim Goodwin, and that must be, a cause of frustration. And he kind of cut that sort of frustrated figure in his post-match press conference. A man that's probably just thinking, what have I got to do to see us score a goal and get a win?
Just to clarify, Ronan did start but came off. But
that's how good he was then.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of frustrating things happening with St Mirren right now. I'd probably say that the 1-0 defeat to Dundee recently probably started this whole worrying picture for St Mirren, because St Mirren were going really good until then, and then ever since they beat 1-0 by Dundee, it's gave Dundee a springboard, but it's given St Mirren a fine margin in terms of they're always coming up short in games, and they're getting found out whenever they play a bigger side to them.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. So let's look at the final game that we haven't covered so far of the Scottish Premiership weekend, and it was taking place at Easter Road, where Hibernian drew 1-1 with Motherwell. Hibs on their worst home run for 9 years. It turned into a bit of an exciting game, but probably one place I want to focus on is probably the battle between Kevin Nisbet and Tony Watt, the two goal scorers from the game, probably vying for that one of the maybe last striker slots in the Scotland squad. But what have you made of both Nisbet and Tony Watt in recent weeks?
Yeah, Nisbet's came in and did very well for Hibs in the past few weeks. There's been no secret in this show in particular that we thought Kevin Nisbet has been a lazy striker up front for Hibs, because due to the absence of Christian Deutsch and other players, and James Scott as well. And it's funny because we kind of look at Hibs and went and said to ourselves that Johnston was a potential banana skin for Hibs last week. But in turn, they went and won the game. Right, and it's kind of helped Hibs in a way, because they were very frustrating until then, but then Nisbet's scored against the Saints last weekend and then scored against Saturday, and that's two good sides he scored against, and that'll do his confidence the world of good. So very good from Kevin Nisbet's point of view, especially with strikers unavailable at this precise moment in time for Jack Ross's side. And it also shows as well that there's not a reliance on Martin Boyle either. And as for Motherwell, good to see Tony Watt scoring again. A lot's been made of Van Veen in recent weeks, but I do feel that Van Veen and Tony Watt carry different assets to this Motherwell side. Tony Watt, 9 goals this season. That's the best. It's probably the best season he's had in club football.
Top scorer in the division.
One ahead of Kyogo. So that just goes to show you how well he's been doing this season. And it's not just the fact he goes and scores goals going. It's also the types of goals he scores.
Yeah,
the goal against United last Tuesday was fantastic, and also the goal on Saturday against Hibs was a good strike as well. So he's scoring different goals as well, which is a major positive, and he's going to be a big player for Motherwell. I mean, if Motherwell can get the right terms and conditions for Tony Watt financially, I know Motherwell aren't a big club in terms of financial impetus or financial, want. But if Tony Watt can get settled at that club, he could be a major player for that for Graham Alexander and Motherwell for the next 3 or 4 seasons minimum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, Tony Watt did miss a couple of chances in that first half. Kevin Van Veen as well, also guilty, as was Cornelius. It was kind of a game of two halves, Hibs scoring against the run of play as Josh Campbell floated the ball in for Kevin Nisbet to guide the ball into the back of the net to give Hibs their first lead in a game for 2 months. If that doesn't emphasise the barren run that they're on, I think that stat does, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would make about that goal is I noticed Hibs women's manager Dean Gibson said on Twitter that if Messi made that pass from Campbell, it'd be the Sky Sports. It was a fantastic ball. Ball Nisbet, and Nisbet does the lovely finger volleying it into the back of the net. Very good fish. I mean, pardon me, from Nisbet, and gives the goalkeeper no chance. And that's what Hibs are really good at. They are really good at getting good balls at areas and getting balls into good channels and ball retention. And if they can get the strikers firing, Hibs probably have one of the best strike forces in the league. because. But that's been the Achilles heel for Hibs. They just haven't had their strike force up and firing of late, and that's been to their downfall.
And I suppose one of Hibs' weaker points has been conceding goals from crosses this season. This weekend saw them not conceding from a cross, but they ultimately still did concede. And Tony Watt, following up from his stunning goal against Dundee United at Fir Park, with an equally excellent finish low into the bottom corner in off the post, giving Matt Macy really no chance. And just as you said there, Dave, like kind of highlighting the quality that Tony Watt does possess and the importance that he also brings to Motherwell in terms of that goal scoring ability.
Yeah, so absolutely. As I alluded to there, he's scoring different goals, which is a major positive. I mean, there's a lot of strikers in this league that will score similar goals, but Tony Watt's been very different, and that's pleasing to see from a Motherwell point of view. It just hasn't clicked from other clubs. I mean, he's been to clubs around Europe and been to clubs in this country, including like St Johnstone. It's maybe just not clicked for Tony Watt, but Motherwell seems home for him, and Graham Alexander's getting a fine tune out of him, and yeah, I mean, whenever I've watched Motherwell, I've been impressed by Tony Watt, and I'll go far as to say that if he keeps this fine run going, there's no reason why he can't be a 15-20 goal season striker for Motherwell this year.
Yeah, and I suppose, Hibs may be wondering or felt or left wondering how they didn't, take 3 points from that game. Josh Campbell missing a gilt-edged chance before hitting the bar towards the end of the game. Is it vital that Jack Ross's side get a bit of momentum before the cup final coming up in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've got a good 3-game window coming up. They've got Livingston. They've got who they like Saturday.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
They've got Dundee. Oh, I know
Dundee, and then it's the cup final, so it's just Dundee. St Mirren away at the weekend.
Okay, well that's a very good 3-game window for Hibs there. Every potential to get 9 points there. Livingston are a side struggling just now. St Mirren the same. Dundee have picked up a bit of form, but a lot of potential there to pick up 9 points. And yeah, if anything more than that, I can understand why Hibs fans would want Jack Ross to be under a bit of pressure, or if not, relieved of his duties. I don't think it's right now's the time to get Jack Ross relieved of his duties as Hibs boss, but the league form must be worrying because, as I said there, they have one of the best strike forces in the league when they're all on fire, and also when the team is doing well, they're probably in the top 4 every season based on their squad, because they probably, with all due respect, have a better squad in paper than Hearts right now, and I think they've got a better squad in certain areas than Dundee United right now.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And just looking to from a point we made earlier, that St Johnstone Ross County game has been rescheduled for the 22nd of December. So the SPL obviously, or SFA, so I should say, obviously keen to get everybody on the same amount of fixtures played before Christmas Day, given that we've got to get the season finished on time this year. Now we do have a few minutes left before the end of the show, Dave. I think it would be amiss to not discuss some of the managerial movements over the weekend. Falkirk being one of the entertaining sides off the field this season, and once again find themselves looking for a new manager after their 6-0 defeat to Queen's Park.
Yeah, I was very intrigued at why Paul Shearer was at Tardis yesterday for some odd reason. Obviously, they used it come out public at that point in time, but I'm assuming by the time Paul Shearer arrived in Tardis on Sunday for the 12 p.m. instalment between Dundee United and Celtic, I'm pretty sure he'd been told to use by then, but Falkirk would probably kept the whole thing internal. But I was actually chatting to, it was on the group chat actually. I put it on the group chat that Paul Shearer was at the game, and Colin Byers was like, "Is his wife scouting Dundee United and Celtic?"
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And obviously Gary Holt's in there as director of football. Do you think he could be in line to replace Paul Sheeran? Or obviously Brian Rice currently out of a job just now. Is there any sort of names you think that Falkirk should be going after right now?
I think there's a few names, as you alluded to, Chipper and Gary Holt. Chipper being Brian Rice, for everybody that doesn't know. and also Gus McPherson potentially. I don't think Gus will go back to football immediately after leaving Morton. We'll get onto him very, very shortly. But from a Falkirk point of view, that was the end for Sheeran. No doubt, no question about it. Yeah. If you're a manager the size of Falkirk Football Club and get beat 6-0 by Queen's Park, who are a good team, I may add, but if you're a manager of Falkirk Football Club and get beat by that scoreline, you're under pressure immediately. The Falkirk Football Club have had no choice but to go ahead and make their decision. But there was a lot of clamour about whether Sheeran was the right appointment for Falkirk, and he probably wasn't upon reflection.
Yeah. I think given that you're right. I think obviously the scoreline added pressure, but also as did the fact how tight League One is and the expectation that's been placed on Falkirk, maybe financially. It's fair to say this season the expectations to get out of that league has spelled the end of time for Paul Sheeran in his reign as Falkirk manager. And as you also said, Gus McPherson is now looking for new employment. Well, maybe if he fancies it, after leaving Greenock Morton after their game at the weekend. Was that a shock for you?
Yeah, probably. I did realise and understand that he was under pressure a bit from Morton fans, but Morton with the budgets they're on and the pandemic, I was under the impression that Gus was in a very safe position at Morton because Morton don't have a lot of money to be getting rid of manager left, right and centre right now. So there was a big call from the Morton board of directors and be added. But also a sign of ambition, if they can get the right manager in, that Morton kind of can get rid of Deadwood and Gus McPherson. I know it sounds very brutal, but they can get
rid of your theme this Monday night.
Yeah, they can get rid of Deadwood and then bring in somebody that's got a better pedigree, will due respect, to come in at Capital. And my Carl McFadden, a few years will know, Celtic fan, he was at the game on Saturday. He actually walked out of Capital exactly the same time as Gus McPherson, and he was on the group chat 5:05 on Saturday saying, "I think Gus McPherson's gone here." Half an hour later, he's gone.
And you know, it's interesting. You know, Yogi Hughes has found himself in at Dunfermline now. You spoke about getting someone with the right pedigree, again with all due respect to Gus McPherson, but who should Morton be looking at within reason? Obviously, maybe there is some financial restrictions around who they can appoint.
Well, yeah, again, I think Brian Rice will be a big one. There's Stuart Kelwell, maybe. He's been out of management for a year now after leaving Ross County. There's a few, yet again, a bit like Falkirk, there's a lot of potential candidates for this position. I think Morton would be a more attractive post position, probably because Morton are a higher league than Falkirk are. And a lot of people look at Falkirk and say it's a poison chalice. A poison chalice, not in terms of the football club, more than anything else.
Off the field, yeah.
Well, off the field, yeah, but also the fact that Falkirk are sixth in the league, and there would be a massive requirement in 6 months to go and get points off of Cove Rangers, Montrose, Airdrie, all these teams that have their own ambitions. But would you look at Falkirk on paper right now and say Falkirk have a better side than Cove, Montrose and Airdrie? I don't think so. And it would need a massive rebuild and a massive connection between the manager and the players and the football club for Falkirk to start getting points, which would ultimately lead to promotion. So that's why I think Morton would be a better job for somebody right now, because the Championship has its own bubble. It has its own bubble of top 4 teams that are going to go for the week, and then Dunfermline down, that's its own bubble as well.
Yeah, I just wonder though if Morton maybe are thinking along the lines, obviously Stuart Petrie signed a long-term deal at Montrose, but would there maybe be some form of temptation to these managers that are performing well in the league, like League 1 and 2? Could they maybe attract some of them to come to Morton with and say, look, let's see what you can do in a bit of a higher league and see if you can take us up the table?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember from a few years ago, Jim Duffy took the Morton job after being at Clyde. Clyde. And Jim Duffy worked wonders at Morton, and he nearly got promoted up to the Premier League. And it didn't exactly work out well for him in the end. But what a job he did at Morton, and very big restrictions financially. And Morton need to go for somebody as similar as that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So it'll be interesting, and I'm sure that will be covered any managerial topics on the rest of through the week on the state of Scottish football. But Dave, it's been a pleasure to chat with you, managerial movements, and obviously rounding up the weekend's action.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much to all the viewers, and thank you very much, Glenn.